not a podcast, but that's my job. I don't know how many conversations I'd be having with people who I was politically opposed to or ideologically opposed to or just didn't see eye to eye with them and wanted to know how they think. I don't know how many opportunities I would ever even get to do that.
What you're doing is so important. And now, there's 1,000 people imitating you. Many really good podcasts.
All right, listen to this. Joe, Question Everything, Rogan, just had another guest on his show who was directly tied to Epstein. And somehow the entire Epstein connection, plus the files, didn't even come up during the full 2.5-hour episode. Wild, right? Especially since Joe has been bringing it up with basically every single guest since the files dropped about a month ago, even with RFK Jr.'s own wife, Cheryl Hines. But hold up. When it's a guy who openly admitted to flying on Epstein's planes, suddenly Joe acts like the biggest conspiracy of the decade doesn't even exist. Instead, he dives into more urgent topics with someone who actually knew Jeffrey Epstein personally.
The fact that people on the left weren't outraged when they read the Twitter files and found out how much involvement there was in silencing real information and removing people who were from Stanford
the White House
and MIT.
ordered me to be removed from Instagram, and I lost 1 million followers.
Insane. Girl, this feels like it's done on purpose because Joe's show is starting to run more like a government-approved propaganda machine. You can almost see it. He's sticking to a strict set of talking points designed to make RFK Jr. look squeaky clean. And honestly, it's pathetic because before the Epstein files dropped, RFK Jr. had no problem openly talking about his past flights with Epstein and even going fossil hunting with the guy back in the 90s. His whole defense was always that nobody knew Epstein's dark side before 2006, and now, suddenly, silence.
Okay, but give the context, obviously, to the Epstein thing, because you basically got out ahead of the...
So first of all, I'm in New York for most of my life.
Yeah.
So, you run into everybody in New York. I mean, I knew Harvey Weinstein. I knew Roger Ailes. I knew O.J. Simpson came to my house. Bill Cosby came to my house.
You also knew good people.
Yeah, I did know a lot of them, but you don't know these people are swamp creatures until all this stuff comes out. My plane rides with Jeffrey Epstein, I took 2 plane rides with him. My wife knew his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, and of course, I ran across Jeffrey Epstein at parties, at fundraisers for the Robin Hood fundraiser in New York.
So, if this JRE episode had aired before the files dropped, RFK Jr. definitely would have brought up the Epstein connection himself immediately. But the fact that neither of them even mentioned what might be the biggest headline of the year, even for a second, raises some serious questions. And hold up, it makes this email chain in the Epstein files even creepier, where Jeffrey, after finding out RFK Jr.'s ex-wife was discovered hanging in her backyard, simply replied, "Whoops." So for Joe to not question that, and for RFK Jr. to stay silent instead of clearing the air like he used to, suddenly everything feels a lot darker. Like, what could whoops even mean? Girl, I guess on the Jeffrey Epstein Experience podcast, they just don't go there anymore. Instead, they'd rather spend hours praising the United States and talking about how much better we are than the UK, which is wild, because RFK Jr. and Rogan even discussed UK arrests over social media posts. Ironically, the UK is also the only country that actually prosecuted someone connected to the Epstein files.
12,000 arrests is crazy. That's a crazy amount of people go to jail for social media posts.
The framers of the Constitution, free speech was everything to them, and they put it in the First Amendment because they knew all the other rights and guarantees were dependent on it. If you have a government that can silence its opponents, it has a license for any kind of atrocity.
I mean, when you're living in a world where the government has the power to dictate what's real and what's not real, and they don't have an obligation to be correct, you got a real problem. And if there's no consequences for them being incorrect and they've silenced correct speech, They've gotten away with something that's real slippery and real dangerous. And when there's a lot of money involved and a lot of businesses involved.
Gee, I wonder which government actually gets to decide what's real or fake and doesn't even have to be right. You know, it's almost like Joe's painting a love letter to his favorite administration here, showing off the iron grip it has on his very own podcast. But of course, he won't question that with someone who's literally in the administration and showing up in the files. I mean, Joe even admitted recently on his show that he's been losing sleep over everything unfolding, almost like he's realizing in real time how massive of a mistake it was to defend these guys tooth and nail. There's just no way to make them look good anymore. But unlike Tim Dillon and Andrew Schultz, who have actually flip-flopped recently and started calling out everything the current administration is doing, from Kash Patel wasting taxpayers' money on trips to Milan, to Pam Bondi only releasing half the files, to Peter Acella stepping down from CBS over his Epstein ties, Joe hasn't touched any of that. Why? Because he's in this way deeper than his other comedian friends. I mean, allegedly, Joe's having phone calls with Trump every other week these days. So yeah, he's past the point of no return and fully compromised. And now, as a result, he's losing sleep over it.
I just get scared by AI clips on Instagram.
Bro, I'm
but
scared
it's
of everything. I have to fucking stay offline.
I know.
I'm reading too much of the news, and it's overwhelming me. Like, sometimes at nighttime, like, I can't wind down.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's too much news. There's too much fucking madness. We're about to go to war with Iran.
I know.
Like, everyone's eating beef jerky and pizza. Like, what are these what the fuck is pizza?
I know.
You know, how far does this go? How come this never got released before? Like, what has happened?
And deep down, you know Joe really wants to call out everything wrong with the Trump administration, just like Andrew Schultz and Tim Dillon are doing right now. But since his puppet strings are allegedly being pulled by those same people in one way or another, he simply can't. He doesn't push back on a single thing RFK Jr. says in this entire episode. He just hands him a smooth joyride, like he's done with all the other pro-war officials he's hosted recently. So yeah, his so-called free speech is ironically being squashed on these particular podcasts, and as a result, Joe's been taking out his frustration on easier targets lately. Poor Jaime Vernon, the show's producer, who used to fact-check Joe on nearly everything, got caught in one of his recent tantrums. Jaime tried to correct Joe's ridiculous claim that players in the recent Super Bowl actually lost money after the championship because of some supposed jock tax. And of course, when Jaime tried to fact-check him, Joe just flew off the rails professionally.
See what they just did to the guys that won the Super Bowl? Do you see the jock tax?
Yeah.
Jamie, you see the jock tax?
Yeah, it's not a new thing, though.
I understand.
not?
I understand, but but it's specific to California.
Yeah,
and this jock tax in California, some of the players lost money playing in the Super Bowl.
That's not
They had to
true.
pay. Oh no, it is true.
I don't think so.
No, it is true. I went it through AI last night.
I don't.
No, it was in. They pulled it up on Grok,
I know.
and people analyzed it, and it's based. No, Jamie. Jamie. It's based on the 7 days that they had to be there. So you have to pay a fee based on the 7 days, dependent upon what your salary is.
They played a game
so
there
it's a
in
percentage.
January, though, too.
Okay.
Maybe this year.
Okay, with whatever. Well, the Super Bowl specifically, these guys. Jamie's so funny.
This is not. I know, but this is one of those things that's not real.
What do you mean it's not real? I told you it was run through AI last night. He made $178,000 for the Super Bowl. He had to pay $249,000 in tax. I'm pretty sure those are the numbers. And it's based on the fact that he was there for 7 days.
Joe's also been taking his anger out on Mark Maron lately too, a comedian who called Joe out on multiple podcasts last year. And guess what? He did it again recently, which I just covered over on my Patreon. So real quick, if you want to support the channel, hit that link below and check out the video, because it really shows how Joe's dumping all his frustration with the administration onto easier targets now. I mean, he simply cannot throw any shade at guys like RFK Jr., because at this point, he's completely cooked. And with a full-scale war with Iran now underway, you really have to wonder if Joe's going to say anything at all. Because not too long ago, he was praising Trump as a peaceful, anti-war president who would bring stability to the entire world. Look, after the election, Joe went on and on with his guests about how much Trump wanted to end all wars globally. Well, apparently that's still part of his agenda. He wants to go down in history as someone who made major positive changes in the world. And like it or not, we're seeing that unfold. That's part of the problem, all these narratives. That's right, peace between India and Pakistan doesn't exactly fit the Democratic Party's story that Donald Trump is a warmonger. He's not a war-hungry guy. So now, with Trump launching a full-scale attack on Iran, you have to wonder, will Rogan even say anything critical about it? Because remember, he once thought Trump was a peace-first president. And just to save you some time, spoiler alert, he probably won't, especially since the attack happened over the weekend, giving Joe just enough time to prep all the talking points about why war is actually a good thing. So even though Joe probably hates that Trump is contradicting everything he campaigned on with him, he can't speak up and instead takes out that frustration on innocent people like he's been doing lately. Look, I don't know if you caught this, but just the other week, Joe lost it with his guest, Roger Avery, who was just trying to entertain the silly little conspiracy that the Earth is flat, which, let's be real, has been debunked countless times. But Roger probably thought Joe would play along, at least a little.
Take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but the big one, the biggest conspiracy theory that freaks everybody out is flat Earth. Now, I don't know what the Earth is, but experientially, through the testimony of the eyes, it is flat. And there is very little chance that I will ever in my life, or most of us will ever in our life experience anything other than what is effectively a flat Earth.
But now that Joe's completely soured these days, he shuts Roger Avery down instantly in a tense, awkward way. He interrupts him non-stop and just generally turns into a total negative Nancy about the whole thing.
From my perspective in life, it is nothing but it's a flat Earth.
But what about travel routes? Like, what about when they fly over Antarctica? What if they?
They don't fly over.
Well, you can
Antarctica.
watch the sun rise and fall.
They don't even fly from Cape down to Buenos Aires.
There's an understanding of the precession of the equinoxes.
They travel up into the other hemisphere and like land in London or something, and then travel back down whenever you're doing a flight across the Atlantic. And so, when you look at it on a flat Earth map, and there are plenty of them,
satellite photographs of Earth from space.
Those are all cartoons.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying that even the NASA, the guys who actually do those composites, those are composite imagery of. Listen, I am not saying that.
But it seems like you're saying that the Earth is possibly flat.
I'm saying experientially.
Right,
but that's a scale. From your daily...
That's a scale issue, though.
Correct.
We're a tiny little thing on an enormous thing.
Correct.
But snipers have to calculate for the curvature of the Earth when they shoot.
Only the curvature of the landscape that they're
right.
on.
Why do you think the landscape curves?
The landscape doesn't curve. It is a mountainous and uneven.
Not always.
Uneven,
no. On flat plains, you have to do the same thing. If you're making a long shot over a flat area, like if you had to shoot.
Well, then why don't pilots make adjustments?
I'm not a pilot. I don't know, but I do know that when you look at the film from the space station,
presume a flat Earth.
When you look at the film from the space
surface.
station, you see an Earth that's not just round but spinning.
So yeah, it was pretty out of character for Joe to just shut down a fun little topic that Roger Avery, of all people, wanted to semi-jokingly bring up. It's almost like there's something he's battling deep inside, and this little internal war he's fighting has, in turn, made him completely zero fun to be around, or even talk to.
This is live footage from the space station.
And I'm saying that's lens curvature, and that what you're actually seeing.
Why do you think that's lens curvature?
And that what you're seeing is horizon.
So what you're talking about is like a fisheye lens.
If I'm trying to provoke you, that's what I'm saying.
Right, but let's not do that right now because I don't want you to be completely fucking insane. Because this is a round body, just like the moon, just like Mars, just like Jupiter, just like Uranus.
Appears to be but in your practical life experience, you have to accept a certain amount of faith. Is what I'm getting at any moment.
But they understand the precession of the equinoxes.
So just an overall pretty disappointing.
So yeah, overall it was a pretty disappointing podcast, though honestly not too surprising to most people. Joe talked to RFK Jr. just like he did with Epstein's old private chef, Adam Perry Lang, completely failing to bring up the Joe files or anyone involved even once, which increasingly seems totally by design. With every episode, Joe feels more like a state-run, right-wing media outlet, censoring way more than he ever would have before. That's basically the essence of his show now, and it's even spilling over into his official subreddit. Real quick, I've got to throw a big shame on you to the mods there, because they're banning anyone talking about politics or Joe's connections to these shady figures. The bans are getting completely out of control, and it almost seems like the mods are literally on Joe's payroll. Honestly, I hope that's true, because if it isn't, they're doing some of the most pathetic bootlicking for free. Reddit mods have always been notorious power trippers, but right now on that sub, it's on a whole other level. As a result, they're losing members just as fast as Joe is. And just so you know, on all charts except Spotify, the Joe Rogan Experience podcast is sitting at number 5. So yeah, he's definitely plateauing, if not straight up declining these days.